Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, AJ to Live, here with the AEW Fyter Fest Night 1 review. Was a stellar show, stellar Night 1 for Fyter Fest. We had the Coffin match between Darby Allin and Ethan Page. We had the IWGP United States Championship match between Jon Moxley and Karl Anderson. Also, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks. A lot of good action last night for Fyter Fest to start out. So again, thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, if you like this video and subscribe if you want to see more. We'll get into all of Fyter Fest Night 1. Also a preview of Night 2 next week. So thank you for joining me today, and let's get into the episode, shall we? The review. So the show started off with Jon Moxley versus Karl Anderson for the IWGP United States Championship. Seeing Moxley in that sea of fans was just rejoiceful, not only for him, but for anyone watching. Dale's place has a good amount of fans, but when, of course, it was over a year with Dale's place. Now, last night was in Austin, and I know last week was the first time that they were back on the road, but last night was really the first time, because they had the stage, they had the long ramp, tons of fans, sold out. Just great to see and rejoiceful, and you can tell Moxley felt it when he came out. He's now a father, and we obviously know he took some time off to help with his new kid, along with his wife, Renee. So good on them. Coming in this match now against Karl Anderson. I mean, we know that last week when we got word of this match that it wasn't probably a bunch of interest going into it, but still, they put on a heck of a match. Karl Anderson, both of them have been in New Japan for, especially Karl. He was in New Japan, obviously, with the Bullet Club for many years, and then they came to the States, part of WWE, and then Impact, now with AEW. It's just good to see. Especially when you figure out this aspect, that Karl Anderson is a Impact professional wrestler, or signed with Impact, competing for an New Japan Pro Wrestling Championship on AEW television. That is a little interesting aspect for anyone who's watching and I guess wants to digest in those little aspects. But now getting to the match, so I didn't see it, but Luke Gallows, he was taken out by Eddie Kingston before the match really started, so it was left being one-on-one between Moxley and Anderson. Then getting into this match was kind of a bit of a slow start, but then Anderson, he hung up Moxley with a cutter over the ropes, and then a big boot to the outside to get the advantage. Then beautiful spine buster by Karl Anderson for a near fall. Superplex then by Moxley, followed up with looked to be a little dangerous. I'm not sure if it was timing, but Anderson hit a driver on Moxley, almost dropped on his head for a 2 count. Then a diving neck breaker by Anderson, followed up with a TKO for another near fall. Then Anderson went for another cutter off the top rope, but was countered into a paradigm shift for the win by Moxley. Afterwards, we got a challenge from Lance Archer talking about their Texas Death match in New Japan early 2020 when Moxley took the title from Archer, ran down the New Japan Pro Wrestling opponents that Moxley has defeated in Kenta, Yuji Nagata. Karl Anderson is not part of New Japan, but ran down him as well. And then so they lay out a challenge for his rematch for the New Japan US title for next week, Fyter Fest Night 2, Texas Death Match between Moxley and Archer. And I'm intrigued by it simply because we know Archer is my favorite guy on the roster that has been really resorted to not much anything. And, he has not. We all know that he came in to AEW during the pandemic and he was built up through the tournament for the inaugural TNT Championship, and he lost to Cody, and then he won that Battle Royal last year, I believe, at All Out, and then he lost to Moxley for the AEW World title, and then most recently at Double or Nothing, he lost to Miro clean, really, for the TNT Championship. So I think to get a title on Archer and give him some direction, because he's, again, seems like he's directionless. It would kind of make sense, but at the same time, you don't want to see Moxley lose because he doesn't lose much for AEW. So it'll be interesting because it's Texas Deathmatch. But overall, good match between Moxley and Anderson to start the show. Then we had another, definitely a more interesting match coming in. Brian Cage versus Ricky Starks for the FTW Championship. Another good match. This was Ricky Starks' first match back from his neck injury that he suffered against Hangman and Paige a number of months ago. And then we know the friction between Brian Cage and Team Taz. How would that affect this match? it definitely played the role in the finish. So, getting this match, crucifix bomb by Sarks after he was caught by Cage for a near fall. Then Starks was hit with a pump handle faceplant by Cage and a super kick by Cage for a near fall. Then good power by Starks, although he was on the middle rope, hitting a sit-out powerbomb on Brian Cage for a 2 count. The crowd reaction was so in the way that with Brian Cage coming away from Team Taz, well, I'll finish the match first and then I'll get into it. But so Ricky Starks was going for the FTW championship, but Powerhouse Hobbs, he took it from Ricky Starks. That allowed Cage to hit an F5 for a 2 count. And then Brian Cage was going for the kill or for the finish. And Hook, who was on the other side of the ring, he distracted the referee. And then Ricky Starks, who ducked out of the way. Powerhouse Hobbs, he was on the ring apron with the FTW championship. Smacked Brian Cage dab in the face with the FTW championship. Starks followed up with spear and covered Brian Cage 1, 2, 3 to crown a new FTW champion, and Brian Cage screwed out of the FTW championship by Team Taz, and seemingly Brian Cage and Team Taz are basically finished now. So, as I was getting into, the crowd reaction for this match seemed iffy when you consider the fact that they're basically trying to turn Brian Cage face now with him moving away from Team Taz. And Ricky Starks is a heel, but the fans love Ricky Starks, I would say. And nonetheless, those crowd reactions were a bit so for me, but nonetheless, great moment for Ricky Starks, his first match back, and he's the new FTW champion. I'm curious where they go from here, because I imagine Brian Cage now get a feud with Team Taz for a little bit, whether it be Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, but how will Brian Cage fare as a babyface is my only concern. But nonetheless, good match. So next we had Cody Rhodes. So Cody, he came to the commentary booth. He put on a headset. He talked about the attack by Malachi Black from last week on him and Arn Anderson. And then he said he's not going to get his point across, so he asked for a microphone, gave the headset back, came to the ring, and he was fired up. He said this is Fyter and he's looking for a fight. So he called out Malachi Black, and then all of a sudden we see these cryptic but beautifully shot promo by Malachi Black. There was smoke, fog coming out, and he was in this like black, dark room, cutting promo about how when a horse is crippled that they don't have it anymore. That talking about a story about a horse getting fed his favorite treats when he's crippled, and then they put a dark hood over his head, and then that's how they get here. So then he compared that to last week, talking about how when you looked in Cody's eyes last week, he didn't see the it, or he didn't see the fire anymore in Cody. So Cody said, why don't you come down here and take another look? So Black said, I'm glad you said that, Cody. So then the arena, like last week, goes pitch black, and then all of a sudden when the lights come back on, Malachi Black is there in the ring with Cody, and they have a brawl, and they're separated by officials and referees. The build up for this match. Cody's the best, arguably the best storyteller in pro wrestling. So the way he's gonna build this match, I imagine, and with the little message we heard from Black, I enjoyed. I think little by little, the more he says, if we can get him in a match or two, but this is going to be a very intriguing match, arguably the most intriguing match for All Out in Chicago, and it's going to be interesting. Now, we still got a month and a half till then, so how they can keep this build-up is the only question. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay for what it was, nonetheless. So then we had Tully Blanchard backstage. He was being interviewed by Alex Marvez, as he was leaving the arena. And all of a sudden we see Santana Ortiz as Tully Blanchard is by himself. So then they basically sent a message to Tully Blanchard. So So Ortiz, he held Tully his arms back and then up for Santana, and then Santana had a tire iron, and it looked like he was gonna deck Tully in the head, but stopped short, and he said, "This is fake, but next time it'll be real." So Tully Blanchard, he was dropped by Ortiz. They left, and we heard them say, get your boys, signaling FTR, and Tully Blanchard said, I'll get my boys. And there was that nice little message by Santana Ortiz for Toy Blanchard and FTR. And it's going to be interesting where they have this match because September 22nd is their debut in New York City. So that could be a very solid venue considering Santana Ortiz are from New York, and or they could do it all out. Either way, this match needs the proper venue between Santana Ortiz and FTR because the crowd is going to eat it up no matter where. So we'll see, but good solid segment. So then next we had Hangman and Paige. He was interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and we know how much. Well, it was funny because we've seen how much that when it comes to a Tony Schiavone interview, how the person takes the microphone out of Tony's hands. Well, not once but twice, we saw an interview, totally normal interview by Tony Schiavone. No one took the microphone out of his hands. So that was funny. I wonder if they looked into it, how it's been kind of a running gag. See who takes the microphone out of Tony Schiavone's hands next. So, but no one took the microphone out of Tony Schiavone's hands, at least for a minimum, for a little bit. So, Hangman, he came out and he was asked by Omega, yes, on if he's ready for his world title shot. And Hangman talked about how he was doubting himself, how he came close to winning the AEW World Championship before, but now he says the Dark Order has reinstilled his fire, reinstilled his belief that he is ready for the world title now. So then, out came the Elite and Don Callis, and they all said that, well, he's not ready. He's not ready. So then Matt Jackson took a microphone, came in the ring, said, hey, you remember us? We're those best friends you abandoned. And then said he's surprised that he left us for some losers, hence the Dark Order. So he said Paige is now the next wrestling tragedy. So then Hangman got in Matt Jackson's face, and then he was decked by Hangman, and then the Elite tried to interfere, tried to gang up on Hangman. Kenny was setting up for a world title, hitting him with the world title, but the Dark Order came, intervened to help out Hangman. And then so Paige said he's not leaving here without a match. And Kenny said, or he said Kenny, he's not leaving himself without one. So then Omega took a microphone. He said, well, you want a match? Hey, everyone, Hangman wants a match. Well, how about this? I know you want me in the ring to yourself, but I'll do you one better. Saying that you can get me and all of the Elite against your goon squad. So 5-on-5, the Elite versus Hangman and the Dark Order, an elimination style match. And then Hangman said, well, when we win, not only do I get my shot at your world title, these guys get a shot at the Young Bucks tag titles. And then so Kenny said, no, you didn't earn it. You didn't earn it. They didn't earn it. So then Omega told the crowd to shut up because they were chanting cowboy shit real loud. And then so Kenny got into the ring, got in Hangman's face, said, we got nothing in exchange. So how about this? When we win, not only do the Dark Order lose their shot at the tag team titles, but you lose your shot at the world title for Omega. So then Kenny said, you'll lose 100% of the shots you don't take, but you also don't fail them. They said, well, Hangman, isn't that what you're afraid of? You're afraid of failure? So then Hangman said, the Dark Order don't back down from a challenge, and you are on. So, interesting aspect. So, because many people think that this match is going to happen in All Out. Hangman and Omega for the world title. But with things opening up and them getting back on the road, and with the forbidden door still yet to be really opened, with Impact Pro Wrestling and New Japan, is this the way that they delay Hangman vs. Omega for later in the year for perhaps Full Gear and perhaps to get another point for Omega All Out, and we kind of continue this Forbidden Door for a little bit more with Omega as world champion of Impact and AAA. Interesting, because if Hangman is going to get a world title shot, he should not lose that title shot versus Omega. That's simple. So this is probably a way for them to buy time, again, for delay it a bit for Hangman, or excuse me, Omega, to let this reign of his breathe a little more with fans back, with, being back on the road again. So we'll see. I mean, it wasn't advertised for next week for night 2. So is this match we get to see at Fight for Fallen in 2 weeks? Maybe. We'll see though. So then we go from that to Chris Jericho, again interviewed by Alex Marvez, who's like a sneaky, almost like a ninja when it comes to these interviews. So he was backstage in some room, and he was attacked by Shawn Spears, and MJF was there, and he announced that the first labor of Jericho to get to MJF is next week, Fyter Fest Night 2. It'll be Chris Jericho for Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears, the chairman, can use a chair, but Chris Jericho cannot. So, the first labor Jericho. Interesting how they pull it off, but I'm for it. So, we get his first labor next week. So then we had Matt Hardy for Christian Cage. I mean, I get it that people were intrigued for this match, that with the build and whatnot, the nostalgia, because I grew up on Christian Cage, and many did. First Matt Hardy, along with the Dudleys, Edge and Christian versus the Hardys, TLC, whatnot. This nostalgic feud is basically a way for Christian to build some more momentum before he turns heel. I think we can all agree. So this match was fine. So Christian, he was DDT'd by Matt Hardy on the steel steps on the outside, which basically played a factor in the match. So then we get late into the match. Was a spear by Christian, then a frog slash for a near fall. A superplex then by Hardy for a near fall. Then Christian was going for the kill switch, but Hardy grabbed the referee and hit a low blow on Christian. And then a twist of fate for a near fall. And then they fight on the outside, and Matt Hardy, he locks on his submission hold, which they call the leech, which took out Christian for a little bit. Then they build up the 10 count. Christian, then he gets into the ring at 9. Then Christian, then out of nowhere, hits the kill switch. 1, 2, 3 for the win. Afterwards, the Hardy family office, they tried to attack Christian after a bell, but Christian was saved by Jurassic Express. And then Christian, he was hoisted on Luchasaurus' shoulders, which prompted a weird look from Jungle Boy, which got people intrigued, got their heads turning. Perhaps we get a swerve and Jungle Boy turning heel on Christian. I don't know. Jungle Boy is so dang over with the crowd that I don't think it works. And Christian, many people aren't buying into him as a face, baby face. So perhaps as a heel, turning on Jurassic Express, considering how over they are, it's a better fit. So we'll see. But the match was okay, and Christian picks up another W. Although what I did not like was they said he was undefeated, and we know that Jungle Boy eliminated him in that Battle Royal. So he's undefeated in one-on-one action, but no, he's not completely undefeated in AEW. So then Britt Baker, she had an in-ring promo. She was interviewed by Tony Schiavone. she was asked about her well-being after taking that powerbomb through the table by Nyla Rose. Asked about a challenge for next week. She talked about how Nyla's at the top of the food chain and how it's difficult to make her relevant. Whereas she's off the menu and this title's not going anywhere except back around her waist. So there's that solid promo, sharp promo by Britt Baker. Again, linking to their match from next week. There's no way Nyla Rose wins the championship. And yeah, nonetheless, Britt Baker hopefully after next week get into a better feud for Britt Baker. So then we had Jon Moxley next. He basically accepted Lance Archer's challenge for a Texas Death Match next week. So should be interesting. Then we had Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta. Now, for those who don't watch Dark and those who don't watch Elevation, because at first I didn't know who he was, but then I realized because I don't watch Elevation or Dark. I skim through them to look at the high points of Dark and Elevation, but apparently Best Friends and Orange Cassidy have kind of took Wheeler Yuta under their wing for the last couple weeks, and he has picked up a couple wins on Dark and Elevation. And this match was, we know who was going to win, but Wheeler Yuta, he looked good in this match with Sammy Guevara. Now, Sammy Guevara is one of the best in the business, but nonetheless, he did a good job for when he was in there with Sammy. So, in the end, Sammy hit a springboard cutter and then a GTH for the win to get Sammy on Dynamite and more of a showcase for kind of Yuta to see what he can bring. And he did not disappoint, I would say, in the short match. Then we had Penelope Ford for the returning Yuka Sakazaki. I mean, the good news is I had recorded AEW Dynamite because I had cousin over and we spent time with them, family time with them. So I recorded AEW Dynamite, and for the pros and cons of recording is you can skip through the commercials and the matches you don't want to see. So once I rewatched it, I didn't care for this match. I skimmed through this match. Yuka Sakazaki, she gets the win over Penelope Ford with top rope splash. I mean, yeah. I mean, Penelope Ford, she's improved a bit from how she started in AEW. I will say that. Although it's a little strange seeing her by herself and now with Kip Sabian. I will say that. But I guess it did what it needed to do. So then we get to the main event. Darby Allin versus Heath Page. First time Coffin match in AEW. So, I mean, I had a feeling kind of what this match is going to transpire. And it was better than what I thought. But, so, we had a bunch of guys. They brought out the coffin. They brought it down ringside. And judging by the size of it, and so Darby Allin and Ethan Page, they both made their way to the ring. Ethan Page by himself, but judging by the size of the coffin, I could pretty much tell where Scorpio Sky was. And I think many people would have thought as well. Because they brought up, oh, Ethan Page, he comes out by himself. And he's like, oh, Scorpio Sky is not coming out with him. Well, it's kind of obvious he's in the coffin. So Darby, he took it to Page to start. He actually, so for those who remember that Bret Hart spot when he called out Goldberg and Goldberg came out and gave a spear to Bret Hart, but he was knocked out because Bret Hart, he attached a steel plate to his stomach and his chest. Whereas Darby, he strapped attached a steel plate to his back, and he did a coffin drop to start to Page. So that was a nice spot to start. So then Darby, he opened the coffin. And again, kind of knew Scorpio Sky, he came out. He attacked Darby. And then, so Sting came out to even the odds. He took care of Scorpio Sky. They were fighting in the crowd. Same with Paige and Darby Allin. They were fighting in the crowd. Paige, he caught Darby, who was diving off the stands. And then they fought their way back into the ring area. But before that happened, Paige, he unhooked a turnbuckle of the ring and he used it as a weapon. So Darby, he has a necklace and he used a hook to drag Darby down by his necklace. What was a kind of brutal spot. And then so they looked like they were getting close to the coffin, and then instead Darby turned it around. He hit Paige with the hook of the turnbuckle. Him in the eyes. They said it busted him open, or he said it was a spot where he was busted open. And then Darby's sick. He hooked with the hook the mouth of Ethan Page. which, I mean, damn, that was a brutal spot to look at. But yeah, nonetheless, so fighting there with Coffin, fighting to the outside. Steel steps are set up in the ring. So Darby, he hit a stunner to Paige while he was on or off the steel steps. So Paige then landed on the steps and Darby went up for a coffin drop, but Paige fought him on the top rope and landed a beautiful but brutal Eagle's Edge off the top rope to Darby back first on those steel steps. Brutal spot. So then Paige looked like he was about to suplex Darby into the casket or the coffin. But Darby countered off. He wrenched the eyes of Paige and then bit Paige. And then Darby's skateboard, which he used for his entrance, he took it from underneath the ring, went up top rope, and hit a skateboard spot onto Paige's back, which then he fell into the coffin, and then Darby closed the lid, and thus Darby wins his first time coffin match in AEW. Heck of a way to end the show. But Darby was not done. So Paige said a number of times weeks ago that he was going to be the nail in Darby's coffin. So then Darby, after he closed the lid on Paige, he went up top rope and he landed a coffin drop on top of the coffin, threw it onto Paige, and that was the exclamation point. And thus, that is how Dynamite goes off the air. So, now I'm sure people will complain that the door, the lid of the coffin kind of broke through and thus it seemed kind of cardboard, plasticky, but Darby's not good. Although he's sick, he's not going to do a coffin drop, and it probably wouldn't have meant as much if Darby landed a coffin drop on a real coffin and landed on top of it. Probably wouldn't have meant much, but heck of a night one for Fyter Fest. Heck of a night for Darby Allin. I mean, got some interesting matches now going into next week for Fyter Fest Night 2. So we got the Texas Death Match between Jon Moxley and Lance Archer for the Iwgp United States Championship. We have Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose for the Women's Championship. So those are a few matches to look forward to for next week. We also got Chris Jericho versus Shawn Spears. Chris Jericho's first labor to get to MJF at All Out. So, interesting stuff for next week. But, nonetheless, heck of first night for Fyter Fest. AEW, second week back on the road. Good to see. next week, night 2 of Fyter Fest. So, but nonetheless, that's the episode for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like, subscribe. But how about the video? I'll see you either on Sunday or Monday for your Slammiversary. Excuse me. 2021 Slammiversary Impact review. First time reviewing Impact, but I will review Slammiversary, which is tomorrow, Saturday, and then depending on how early I get the highlights and the review, it'll either be Sunday or Monday. I'll be back in, and then of course sorts of topics on Tuesday, and then of course Fyter Fest Night 2 review next week. So that's the schedule for you guys. So thank you. Be safe. See you a couple days. Be safe and peace.